So let's continue on in our journey with Frankenstein as we move into letter 3. And I just want to hit a couple of highlights that we noticed in letter 1 and 2. We talked a little bit about this Russian doll or nesting doll setup that Mary Shelley seems to be using. And if this is going to be effective, there's some important details that happen in letters 1 and 2 that we need to make note of. One of those is this idea of the isolated hero or the isolated character. And so we learn in letter 1 and letter 2, specifically letter 2, that Captain Walton was an orphan. His father died when he was at a young age, and he was left in the care of his father's brother, his uncle. And we also learn that the father left some very strict instructions that the son was not to have adventure. He was not to be allowed to travel in the world. And he was limited in his education, at least in his own mind. All he was allowed to do were simply read the books in his uncle's library, which were filled with adventures and tales of the sea. And so it's no wonder that he grew up longing to go to sea. We learn from him that he tried his hand at being a poet, which, as we look in the details of this story, we'll see later in the person of Henry Clerval, Victor's best friend, who also wishes to be a poet. But I think one of the more important things I want to look at is who he's writing this letter to. So Captain Walton is addressing his letter to his sister, Margaret Seville, who is absent but seems to be a very big influence on his life. She, like many of the women, are not going to be the central characters, but in some way they are the highly influential characters, and they hold some kind of sway or magnetism over our characters. And you could even make a case that it's probably the lack of a female figure within the creature's life that causes him maybe to hemorrhage in his actions toward humanity. All right, another quick aspect I want to look at are the dates, because this often confuses students. So if we begin to look at the dates of the letters, letter 1 is dated by Captain Walton as December 11th, 17. And sometimes kids get confused about this nomenclature when they use like a 17 and then a dash. Like it's a mystery. This is part of the style of that age. There were very loose copyright and restrictions, but certainly authors were aware that they didn't want to pinpoint too accurately figures who might be familiar to the public. And so they often disguise. Sometimes you'll see an author use a name, like they'll begin with the first letter and then just do a dash as if it's a mysterious person. And I think that's all Mary Shelley's doing here. There's nothing toward. It does lead to a dating problem, which I'll talk about later, on when this book possibly could have been written, given some of the allusions made in it. But we have December 11th. The next letter appears March 28th, okay, some 4 months later. And then again, we see another one in July. That's letter 3, what we'll look at today. And then letter 4 happens on August 5th. And then that's where Victor is picked up aboard the ship. And then very quickly, the letters end August 13th through 19th, and Victor begins to tell his story in what is the last long letter that Captain Walton will write to his sister. So let's take a look at letter 3. It's a very short one, but I think it gives us a bit of information. Letter 3 to Mrs. Seville, England, July 7th, 17. My dear sister, I write a few lines in haste to say that I am safe and well advanced on my voyage. This letter will reach England by a merchantman now on its homeward voyage from Archangel, more fortunate than I, who may not see my native land, perhaps for many years. I am, however, in good spirits. My men are bold and apparently firm of purpose, nor do the floating sheets of ice that continually pass us, indicating the dangers of the region towards which we are advancing, appear to dismay them. We have already reached a very high latitude, and it is the height of summer. And although not so warm as in England, the southern gales which blow up speedily towards those shores which I so ardently desire to attain breathe a degree of renovating warmth which I have not expected. No incidents have hitherto befallen us that would make a figure in a letter. One or two stiff gales and the springing of a leak are occurrences which experienced navigators scarcely remember to record, and I shall be well content if nothing worse happens to us during our voyage. Adieu, my dear Margaret. Be assured that for my own sake, as well as yours, I will not rashly encounter danger, but I will be cool, persevering, and prudent. But success shall crown my endeavors. Wherefore not? Thus far I have gone, tracing a secure way over the pathless seas, the very stars themselves being witness and testimonies of my triumph. Why not still proceed over the untamed yet obedient element? What can stop the determined heart and resolved will of man? My swelling heart involuntarily pours itself out thus. But I must finish. Yours, your affectionate brother. Heaven bless my beloved sister, Robert Walden.